Hi there, I'm Logan Medish, and this is High Caliber History. And today the gun we're taking a look at is one of the 1911s from the CMP, the Civilian Marksmanship Program. And this gun came out of the third round of pistols, which makes it a little different. You know, in the first two rounds, they offered service grade, field grade, and rack grade. But in the third round, they offered a fourth option, which is what this is, and it's called the range grade. And these were guns that they said, you know, you're looking for a shooter gun. These aren't going to be collector grade guns. They're going to exhibit aftermarket parts on them, and that's exactly what we find on this gun. The slide stop has been replaced. It has an ambidextrous safety lever here on the gun. The rear sight has been replaced with something that is incredibly tall. The front sight has been replaced with a larger sight. The trigger has also been replaced. It is a short serrated face trigger with a threaded hole in the center, so it probably had a trigger shoe at some point. And then of course it's wearing Hogue rubber finger grips on it. It's still got the GI grip safety, the mainspring housing, and the hammer to it, but it's got some changes, right? And it's also mismatched. It is a Remington Rand slide from World War II era, and the frame is a Colt World War II era. Right at the end, the serial number dates the gun to April of 1945. So it's interesting. It's got, you know, very end of World War II history to it, but what's really interesting is what happens with the gun later on. So I submitted a FOIA request for this, and you have to understand that FOIA requests are only going to bring back information no earlier than 1976, because that's when they first started keeping track of them for the FOIA records. And most of the guns that you can find FOIAs on for pistols, you won't see stuff until the 90s, maybe the 80s if you're lucky, but this particular gun actually has stuff going all the way back to 1977, so I definitely got lucky with that. In April 11th of 1977, the gun is received at Anniston Munitions Center in Alabama, and they register it into the DoD Small Arms Light Weapons Registry. And it's not long after they get the gun, in August of 1978, we've got ANAD markings over here, rework markings. So it's ANAD 878 telling us that the gun was reworked by them at the depot in August of 1978. Then the FOIA tells us that on July 27th of 1979, Anniston shipped the gun to the 200th Theater Army Material Management Center, 21st Theater Sustainment Command in Kaiserslautern, Germany. It takes some time for the gun to make its way over there. They ship it in July, and it makes its way to Germany and is put on their records on October 17th of 1979. And then the gun kind of floats around Europe for a decade, and we really don't know what it's up to, because the next record for the gun isn't until June 28th of 1991. And that's when Kaiserslautern, Germany sends the gun back to Anniston, Alabama. Anniston receives it July 13th of 1991, and then the records go dark for 8 years. But in that time, while it was at Anniston, it was reworked a second time, and so the date is stamped again 994. So the gun was originally reworked at Anniston in August of 78, and then it gets reworked again in September of 1994. Then, 5 years later, is where things get a little more interesting. In February of 1999, the gun is shipped to the Defense Logistics Agency distribution in Anniston. And the gun sits there for 2 years, and then in February 26th of 2001, Anniston sends the gun to the Concept Evaluation Support Agency in Lexington, Kentucky. And this is more colloquially known as the Bluegrass Army Depot. And Bluegrass is an interesting place because that's where guns find themselves when they are being worked on by contractors as part of a more than $600 million contract for Lockheed Martin. And one of the things in that contract is that they've got people working on guns, particularly small arms. And we know from other records that this is where guns are being worked on that end up being sent to Special Forces units, SOCOM units. So we've got indications from other guns that we've seen that have come out range grade that have gone to the Lexington, Kentucky location, being issued to the 10th SF. We don't have that information for this particular gun. I have other FOIA requests out at other locations, and I'm waiting to hear back and see if the gun went anywhere to anyone related to SOCOM. We don't know. I don't have that information at the moment. I know that the gun had reconciliation done between 2003 and 2009 at Lexington. And so it's possible that it just sat there awaiting issue to a SOCOM unit that never came. I don't know. But again, this is just the information that the frame can tell us based off of the serial number. There is also other information that is a little bit of a mystery to this gun. For example, the 201 is probably a rack number, but beyond that, I don't know. When I took the gun apart, on the inside of the slide stop is scratched 3/8. I don't know what that significance is, but obviously someone saw purpose enough in scratching the 3/8 in there. And then again, inside the slide, there is some electro pencil marking, and it's a little hard to make out. I'm not entirely certain what it says. It looks like 1 PLA, then a mystery digit, and then CO. So is that possibly some unit information? I don't know. Is that tied to the 3/8 on the slide stop? Again, I don't know. But nonetheless, it's pretty cool to have a pistol coming out of the CMP with 2 Aniston rework notifications on the gun, interesting aftermarket parts, and then FOIA information telling us that it spent a decade during the Cold War, at the end of the Cold War, behind the Iron Curtain, over there in Germany. So what it was doing there, I don't know. And then again, it comes back and finds itself at Bluegrass, and then is being reworked into a configuration that we've seen on other known Special Forces guns. So a lot of history to this gun. The FOIA was neat because it gave me a lot of answers, but the FOIA is also a little frustrating because it gave me quite a few more questions as well. So that's what we know about the gun right now. Made in April of 45, and then it was probably used Korea, Vietnam, then it goes over to Germany in the 70s, comes back to the States in the 90s, and ends up in Lexington, Kentucky, where the SOCOM guns are being made. So a lot of interesting history before it finally made its way to the CMP and then to me in 2023. So just thought you guys might enjoy taking a look at this range grade 1911 A1 that came out of the 3rd round of the CMP pistol shipments. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of High Caliber History, and I'll see you right here on the next episode.